Ready to step off the map from the most hidden alleyways to the stories nobody told you? Uncharted Alleyways begins now. Your definitive guide and travel podcast, culture, adventure, and the world as you've never heard it. Tune in, disconnect from the obvious, and come explore with us. Uncharted Alleyways, your next trip starts here.
What if the most important monument in Rome actually isn't the Colosseum?
Right.
Or like the Pantheon or the sprawling ruins of the imperial palaces? What if the most profound piece of history is actually, well, the physical ruts carved into the dirt and stone by hundreds of thousands of everyday commuters just trying to get to work?
Yeah, that shift in perspective, it completely changes how we interact with history. Because we tend to view ancient cities as these static, quiet mausoleums,
Exactly, like they were just built by mythological figures and then frozen in time.
Right, but focusing on the friction of daily life, it forces us to see Rome not as a collection of dead emperors, but as this massive, ongoing social experiment.
And that is exactly the tension we are unpacking today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are looking at a really brilliant travelogue titled Rome, Walking Through the Heart of an Empire.
It's a fantastic source.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the mission here is to take you on an audio walking tour through the city's dual identities. We're looking at the colossal, heavy empire-building past, and we are going to collide that directly with the intimate, highly adaptable, vibrant present of modern Roman life. So, okay, let's unpack this.
What's fascinating here is that to truly understand this place, you have to grasp the mechanics of both. Because Rome operates on this monumental scale meant to project global dominance, but, it survives through the microscopic, everyday routines.
The neighborhood pulse that keeps it beating.
Exactly. The source argues that you really cannot comprehend the empire until you understand the neighborhood.
So to start, the travelogue actually grounds us where that projection of dominance was the absolute loudest, right? The epicenters of ancient public life and entertainment, the Colosseum and the Roman Forum.
Starting with the heavy hitters.
Yeah, exactly. The text does this just to establish the sheer logistical scale of what the first century Roman state was capable of executing. I mean, the engineering alone is staggering.
Oh, absolutely staggering. The Colosseum was completed in the first century, and it managed a capacity of roughly 50,000 spectators.
50,000. It's wild to think about.
It is, but the source pushes us past just the architecture and into the sensory reality of what that actually meant. It asks you to imagine the acoustics, the smells, the sheer density of human bodies navigating those ancient passageways.
And the text paints this picture that feels, surprisingly modern to me.
How so?
Well, it describes tens of thousands of people arriving in the dark, like hours before sunrise. You have local vendors setting up stalls, they're selling food, wine, merchandise.
Yeah, early morning commerce.
Right. And there is this swelling, palpable energy of a massive crowd hyping each other up before the gates even open. When you strip away the togas, the mechanics of this gathering are literally identical to modern-day sports fans tailgating outside a major stadium before a championship game.
That analogy actually reveals the underlying mechanism of Roman public entertainment, though.
Which is what, exactly?
Well, it wasn't just about putting on a good show. It was a highly calculated algorithm for social control. The emperors provided this massive, centralized sensory overload, at the bread and circuses.
Right, keep the people happy.
Keep them fed, distracted, and unified under a state narrative. It channeled the unpredictable energy of 50,000 people into a controlled environment where the emperor held the ultimate authority.
Wow. Which makes the practical advice in the travelogue even more interesting. It suggests that to actually absorb the gravity of the Colosseum today without feeling like you are trapped in that ancient crowd control algorithm, you have to book well in advance and go at first light.
Yeah, to avoid the chaos.
Exactly. The morning sun hits the travertine stone differently, and the absence of the midday crowds lets you actually perceive the scale of the structure instead of just reacting to the noise around you.
Escaping the chaos is crucial, especially because the architectural narrative continues immediately next door in the Roman Forum.
Right, the machinery of the empire.
Yes. If the Colosseum was the mechanism for public distraction, the Forum was the machinery itself. This valley housed the Senate, the major temples, the economic tribunals.
The actual administration of a civilization spanning 3 continents.
Yeah.
But You know, the detail in the source that absolutely fascinated me wasn't the podiums where senators gave speeches.
It was the pavement.
Yes, the deep grooves literally worn into the solid basalt stones of the Via Sacra, the main road through the Forum.
Those grooves are the perfect representation of physical memory versus monumental memory. We build monuments to force people to remember a specific leader or a specific war.
Right.
But those ruts in the stone, they were created organically by the physics of daily life. Millions of iron-rimmed cartwheels and leather sandals, day after day, year after year, grinding against volcanic rock.
It's the micro-frictions of ordinary people just going about their day, buying produce, delivering goods, walking to the baths. The sheer repetition of human existence actually carved its way into the geology of the city.
The weight of that realization is profound, I think. History is overwhelmingly shaped by the anonymous masses, the people whose names aren't carved into the marble columns, but whose daily labor literally eroded the streets.
But wait, I have a question here. If the Valley of the Forum is where all the daily commerce, the politics, and the religious life were actually happening, why did the ruling class build their homes away from it?
Moving up to Palatine Hill.
Yeah, the source moves us up from the valley floor directly onto Palatine Hill, where the emperors built these sprawling, extravagant palaces. That seems entirely inconvenient if they wanted to keep a finger on the pulse of the empire.
Inconvenient for running errands, perhaps, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, it is a masterclass in spatial propaganda.
Okay, spatial propaganda. Break that down for me.
Well, the legend claims that Romulus founded Rome on Palatine Hill. By building their palaces on that specific piece of high ground, the emperors were doing two things. First, they were co-opting the mythological founding of the city to legitimize their own current power.
Oh, so it's ancient PR. Like, we aren't just rich politicians hoarding the best real estate. We are the sacred guardians of our ancestral origin.
Exactly. It is architectural gaslighting.
I love that phrase.
But second, it's about visual dominance. When you elevate the seat of power above the bustling, messy valley of the Forum, you force the population to physically look up to you.
So every time an everyday Roman citizen bought bread in the market, they had the looming silhouette of the imperial palace in their peripheral vision.
Subconsciously reinforcing their lower status in the hierarchy, yes. But the travelogue notes that today, the psychological weight of Palatine Hill has completely shifted.
Yeah, it describes it as this serene space now. Umbrella pines, gardens, and quiet ruins. The recommendation is to find a bench near the edge and just look out over the city.
Because the vantage point from that hill offers what the author brilliantly frames as vertical time.
Vertical time. That is such a cool concept.
It really is. When you look out over Rome from an elevation, you don't just see geography. You see antiquity in the skeletal remains of the basilicas below. You see the Renaissance in the massive domes of the churches rising behind them. And you hear the low hum of modern Roman traffic wrapping around the perimeter. The entire timeline of human civilization is stacked in a single, simultaneous glance.
It's like looking at a geological core sample of human history. But our source material makes a hard, intentional pivot right here. It argues that once you understand the architecture of ancient power, you have to physically turn your back on it to understand the modern people. We have to cross the Tiber River.
The river acts as a psychological and physical boundary. You leave the monumental scale behind, the massive arches and wide avenues designed for military parades and imperial intimidation.
And crossing into the neighborhood of Trastevere, the geography forces a completely different social behavior.
The sensory details completely flip.
They really do. We go from vast marble ruins to narrow, winding medieval alleyways. The text highlights laundry lines strung between upper-story windows, terracotta pots overflowing with ivy, and the constant weaving buzz of scooters.
The physical closeness of the buildings creates this intense feeling of neighborhood intimacy. And that density dictates the culture.
Because the streets are too narrow for heavy traffic, they become extensions of the living room, right?
Yes, people interact constantly. And the travelogue suggests that navigating this space requires abandoning the tourist mindset. You don't approach Trastevere with a checklist of monuments to conquer.
No, the cultural philosophy here relies on unstructured wandering. It's about rewarding curiosity rather than rigid planning.
I mean, the author describes the experience of being in a loud, vibrant piazza filled with people drinking coffee, and then you take one step down a side alley and suddenly the acoustics completely shift.
It's dead silent, save for a distant church bell and a local artisan working leather in a tiny shop.
That unstructured wandering allows the city to reveal its incredible adaptability. Rome is not a static museum piece. It survives by constantly reinventing its spaces to serve the immediate needs of its community.
And nowhere is that mechanism of reinvention more dramatic than just back across the river at Campo de Fiori.
Oh, absolutely.
This is one of my favorite details in the deep dive. By day, Campo de Fiori operates as Rome's oldest open-air market. The text details massive, fragrant stalls of fresh artichokes, basil, olive oils, and spices.
It is a loud, practical commercial space where locals buy their daily groceries. It functions as an essential part of the neighborhood's microeconomy.
But then, the afternoon arrives and the entire market just physically vanishes. The logistics are wild to think about.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yes, the municipal sweepers come through, clearing away the crushed cabbage leaves and wooden crates. And within a matter of hours, local restaurants roll out heavy tables and chairs into the exact same footprint.
The space transforms entirely.
From a utilitarian grocery hub into a massive ambient outdoor dining room. It's like a theater stage that changes its entire set design in a matter of hours.
It is a remarkable piece of urban fluidity. In many modern cities, spaces are strictly zoned. A commercial market is a market, a dining district is a dining district.
Right, there's no overlap.
But Roman culture utilizes flexible space. The piazza adapts to the rhythm of the day, morphing to serve commerce in the morning and social connection at night.
Which naturally leads us to the ultimate social connection in Rome, the dinner table.
Of course.
And if we're going to talk about eating in Rome, we have to talk about the economic sociology behind the source's biggest warning. Do not eat at restaurants with giant laminated menus translated into 12 different languages.
It is a crucial piece of advice, and it goes far beyond just avoiding a bad meal.
Why is that?
Well, a laminated multi-language menu is an indicator of a specific type of supply chain. It implies a static, globalized inventory, heavily reliant on frozen ingredients that can sit for months.
Whereas the travelogue insists you hunt for small trattorias with handwritten daily specials. Because a handwritten menu means the kitchen is operating on a hyper-local microeconomy.
Exactly. They are cooking whatever fresh ingredients were pulled out of the dirt by local farmers or sold at markets like Campo de Fiori that very morning.
And I have to push back against this tourist mindset I see all the time, this idea of just getting fuel between monuments. In Rome, looking for a quick bite is entirely missing the point of the city.
Rushing into a tourist trap restaurant just to get fuel fundamentally breaks the social contract of the city. The architecture of a Roman meal is not about caloric intake.
No, it's about the deliberate pacing of human connection. The sociology of the dinner table demands that you linger.
This raises an important question about how we travel, emphasizing that meals here are about enjoying the company around the table.
The source gives us some fantastic specific spots that honor this philosophy. Places like Danzo L29 and Trastevere, which usually have a line down the street because it's so small and authentic.
Or Tonarello for massive communal plates of fresh pasta.
Yeah, and if you want the absolute best raw ingredients, cheeses, and cured meats, it points to Roscioli near Campo de Fiori. But when we finally sit down, what is actually happening on the plate?
The travelogue breaks down the holy trinity of Roman pasta, and it is all about technique over complexity.
The sheer chemistry of these dishes is fascinating. Take cacio e pepe.
On paper, it is just pasta, pecorino romano cheese, and black pepper.
Right, super simple. But the magic lies in the emulsification. The starchy water left over from boiling the pasta binds with the sharp melting fat of the sheep's milk cheese to create a luxurious, creamy sauce without a single drop of actual cream.
It's culinary engineering. And the same goes for carbonara. The text makes it very clear authentic carbonara does not use cream.
No cream. I love how adamant they are about that.
It relies on the rendered fat of guanciale, which is cured pork cheek. You slowly melt that fat down, and then off the heat, you aggressively whisk it with egg yolks and pecorino.
The residual heat cooks the egg just enough to create a velvet texture, while the rich pork fat coats every single noodle. It sounds incredible.
And if you introduce a tomato base to that guanciale and pecorino combination, you arrive at amatriciana, adding acidity to balance the rich, salty depth of the pork.
The reliance on these few, high-quality, local ingredients mirrors the structure of the city itself. Ancient, proven foundations supporting incredible daily experiences.
Absolutely.
So you've lingered over the carbonara, you've slid a bottle of wine, and eventually you need a place to sleep. The travelogue's advice on accommodation ties directly into this idea of local connection.
Steering you away from the big chains.
Exactly. It steers travelers away from the massive corporate luxury hotels in favor of family-run guest houses in neighborhoods like Monte, Prati, or Trastevere.
Corporate standardization offers predictability, which is comfortable, but it strips away the context of where you are. A family-run guest house offers localized social capital. A
Right.
family who has lived in that neighborhood for 3 generations holds the hyper-local knowledge that algorithms can't replicate. They know which unassuming wooden door hides an incredible Renaissance fresco, or which baker pulls the freshest bread out of the oven at 7 a.m.
It's the difference between observing a city and actually participating in it. And the text offers a practical economic tip here, too. Aim for the shoulder seasons, spring or autumn.
Better weather, fewer crowds.
Yeah, not only are these guest houses more budget-friendly, but the weather allows you to actually walk the city comfortably, which is the only real way to understand it.
Walking is the ultimate unifier in Rome. It forces you to engage with the topography, the architecture, and the people at a human scale.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I really want to capture the specific sensory atmosphere the travelogue describes when the day finally winds down. It's quite poetic.
It really paints a picture.
It talks about the ancient bricks of the buildings.
Mhm.
All day long, they absorb the intense Mediterranean heat, and as evening sets in, they slowly release that thermal mass back into the narrow streets.
Creating a literal physical warmth that wraps around the neighborhood.
You have the golden glow of the street lamps reflecting off the cobblestones, the smell of garlic and baking bread drifting out of open windows.
Tiny, candlelit shrines to the Madonna tucked into the corners of buildings.
Quietly watching over the musicians setting up in the piazzas. There is no rush. The heavy, monumental weight of the empire completely softens into the rhythm of a living, breathing community.
The contrast is what makes it so compelling. You spend the morning contemplating the fall of an empire, and you spend the evening participating in a culture that never really died, it just adapted.
Now, for everyone listening, our source material doesn't end at the dinner table. The travelogue continues in its next chapters to literally cross international borders into Vatican City.
It's a massive shift in scale again.
It is. It dives into the overwhelming scale of St. Peter's Basilica, traces the defensive history of Castel San Angelo, and delivers a highly practical guide on the specific tourist traps you absolutely must avoid. So there was a wealth of knowledge still waiting in these pages.
But before we close, I keep coming back to those deep physical ruts worn into the basalt stones of the Roman Forum.
A physical memory of the daily commute.
Yes. We spent today marveling at how the most enduring legacy of this massive empire was actually carved by the friction of ordinary people just living their lives.
Right.
If daily repetition is what truly shapes the geological and historical record of a civilization, what are we carving right now? When historians or archaeologists look back at our cities 2,000 years from now, what everyday routines will define us?
Wow.
Will our legacy be the physical structures we build, or will it be the digital wear and tear of a society that stopped walking together and started isolating?
That is a staggering thought. Or the daily grooves we're leaving behind today, something that will inspire someone 2 millennia from now.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of Rome. Keep wandering, keep questioning, and we'll catch you on the next one.